Europe, since we started to touch on overseas. Today we keep referring to this, the headlines in Italy today, which are basically that the prime minister is set to resign. And we know that there have been elections or pending elections in France and Germany. We had Brexit earlier this year. How do all of these affect market dynamics in the rest of the world? And this is a question from Carling.
Well, I mean, theoretically, how it should work is if there's a greater uncertainty after an election, regardless of where you reside, that would say all else equal, that's a headwind for the markets and for growth. I mean, markets, they don't like uncertainty. Uncertainty tends to stall business investment or consumer spending for a time until you and I know what's going to happen.
Right.
And if you're a small business or any business manager, you may say, I may hold off. Historically, that has been at the margin, at the present for growth. But I think there's a broader. I'll get to some of this now, Rebecca. What all those events that you say, there's a common thread throughout all of them. And I know globalization is taking it on the chin. But let me say two things. If globalization is the root cause of all of these events, then you would expect, say, manufacturing jobs. I mean, I'm going to just call spade to spade from the economic analysis. You would expect manufacturing jobs to be rising in many countries and falling in the United States. The fact is they've fallen in every developed market in the world. So the biggest reason for the job losses, or I would say for the efficiency gains, has been technology. That explains by academic studies roughly 85% of the job losses, or I should put it this way, of the lack of job growth in manufacturing globally is due to greater efficiency gains. In fact, manufacturing is probably the most efficient and productive sector of the global economy, which is why output has doubled over the past 5 years, even though job growth has been flat. So I wouldn't expect to see a rapid rise in manufacturing jobs, employment, in part because of the technology that is at work. And I think in computerized digital technology, we're going to see some of these, it's both a tailwind because that means higher standards of living because of higher productivity growth, but it does mean that, if one is hoping for a very strong rapid rise in employment in the manufacturing sector, I don't think we're just, given the analysis, I don't think we're going to see a rapid increase of what we saw, say, 20 or 30 years ago to the level that we're at.
Just different types of jobs. The robots come in and the jobs shift.
Well, and let's also be fair. Some of the jobs not all. So that I got to be careful here. I'm trying not to. It's a very politically charged topic, but I can tell you, some of the jobs globally that have been lost. Not all, but some of them are actually, they weren't the most high-paying and most productive. Actually, some of the. I would argue the manufacturing industry in the United States is actually the most productive sector of the U.S. economy. It's the strongest. That's why it tends to not add as many jobs as other sectors because it is so efficient with technology, machinery, and so forth, robotics, and so there's other. The U.S. is still probably the most productive of all the manufacturing countries in the world. China's not nearly as productive or as efficient, which is why at the margin they've tended to add jobs because they're not as efficient as productive, and their wages are lower. Now again, where that equilibrium or that fair point is, how one defines fair, probably every single viewer on this webcast has a different definition of fair, but there's a technological backdrop to the trends that we're seeing, which means we'll tend to see more of these headwinds politically over the next few years.
Well, think about how
there's a lot in this. It's not globalization as if some country is losing and all these other countries are winning.
Right.
Actually, there's efficiency gains, which is good for global economy. But to say that jobs have gone away here and they sprouted everywhere else is actually not in the data. Manufacturing as a share of the economy has fallen in many industrialized countries.